Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today, I'm talking about the new album from BT, Between Here and You. So, things are looking to be interesting for BT fans, huh? In addition to this album I'm about to review, which he only just announced a week before releasing it, basically came right out of nowhere, he also announced his next album, which is apparently going to be a 16 or 17 track double album stretching over 2.5 hours done in this binary universe style, called Everything You're Searching For Is on the Other Side of Fear. So basically what he was advertising underscore to be and turned out not to be. I'm gonna save my reservations for that one until I actually hear it or at least see a track listing, but I'm tentatively very hyped for that. But for now, let's talk about this project, Between Here and You, which is basically his sequel to Nuovo Morceau Subrosa, a completely ambient project with not a single beat to be found. Heck, it's basically just that same album again. Exact same general vibe, a lot of the same ingredients too, just much less pretentious packaging. Yeah, I'm not gonna act like I have a lot to say about this one. I'm not sure if it's better than Morceau Subrosa. The general feeling of a rehash and lack of originality makes it harder for me to recommend. But I do think this album is better paced. Morceau Subrosa was a little front-loaded, felt like it was starting to run out of interesting ideas like halfway through. This album doesn't feel like it just runs out of steam in the same way. It does spread out the more interesting ideas and instrumental textures. Though not every track on here is as engaging as the next. A track like the opener, Transmission, it's cool, it sets the tone, it lets you know what you're getting into, well produced, warm, expansive, it's a BT ambient track. Outside of that, it doesn't really do anything that stuck out to me. And not to say there isn't anything interesting on this album, it's BT, can't have that. The gurgling layers of synth bleeping on Photosynthetic are quite nice, as is the impressive hugeness of a track like Akebonika, with all its imposing pads and dissonant, barely tonal whispering choirs. And you also got a track like If/Then, which I'm fairly certain contains mostly hydrophone recordings, something cool he was advertising this album to have. That said, this track sounded like it added a little bit of audio clipping here and there, which kinda bugged me. BT's not the kind of producer who would let that slip. I guess it's there on purpose to make it sound rougher? I don't know. It's not the worst case I've ever heard, and regardless, but it kinda got under my skin. And you got the track Metamorphic. I was looking forward to that one because it's 9 minutes long. Figure it's gotta be good. And it is, though there was a lot less to it than I thought there was going to be. It's mostly just singular synth lines drowned in reverb. It's cool. Got some field recordings of crickets at 1.2. There's field recordings on a good handful of tracks here, though they're not always that noticeable. But yeah, this track, it's pretty minimalistic, but I like it. And this album picks up a bit more in its second half. You got a track like The Obstacle Is the Way. It's structured a little like a chilled out acoustic guitar and piano singer-songwriter thing. BT even sings on it. Though his voice is way in the background and so covered in reverb that you can't understand a single word he says. But whatever, this track may be short, but it felt like a more formless take on a track of his like Our Dark Garden. It was a pretty consistent favorite. Subroutine is kinda like Metamorphic again, but with more present and structured melody, rather than just kinda aimless, minimal synth improvisations. I actually think I prefer Metamorphic, but whatever, this track's nice too. And there's Chromatography, which is probably my favorite track in the bunch, mainly thanks to, its use of choirs and BT's wordless vocalizing, which really give it some warmth. Going up against the pianos and Tangerine Dream-esque synths, there's an absolutely wonderful blend of sounds on this. It's probably the most evocative moment on the album for me. Though I don't think it's better than Chromatophore from Underscore. You got Sunfall, which sounds like it repurposed one of the earlier sections of his old track, The Gathering Darkness, tried to build it into something else. That one has a nice chord progression. That was one of the more memorable moments on the album. Also has a nice warmth to it that felt good. And finally, we finished with Slow Motion and Harmonics, which resembles some of the more metallic-sounding parts of Morceau Subrosa. It's mainly just a single major third filtered through lots of different filters, I guess, allowing it to shift and evolve and fall out of focus or come back into focus. It's all cool, but that's about all I got. Okay, I've been listening to this thing repeatedly since it dropped, and honestly, I've been having a hard time focusing on it or really coming up with much to say about it. I enjoy it, I think it can have its place, but it's just not that interesting for BT. It's the kind of album that I find myself getting into less the more I listen to it or try to expound thoughts on it. It works best when I'm not thinking about it. It's not tedious or shrinking on me much, but I'm just not hearing a lot there. And it's kind of hard for me to fully sign off on this when we already have Morceau Subrosa, which had a bit more interesting stuff in it, and had the benefit of doing this whole idea first. Not to say this album is made completely redundant by Morceau Subrosa. Again, there are a few ideas here that aren't explored there, and it is interesting that even though this project is a good 5-6-ish minutes longer than Morceau Subrosa, it feels a lot shorter and more concise. This thing zips by pretty fast. But I don't know. I feel like I'd like this thing more if I just take it as a side project. That's what it feels like an appetizer as a prelude to what will eventually be the main course of his next album. This album feels like it should be attached on the end of something bigger, and just from the less pretentious than usual presentation, I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what he was going for. It is cool to have a much lower stakes BT album like this. It doesn't have to feel so much like a big important event. But if I have to judge this thing as a mainline BT studio album all on its own, I don't feel like I got enough. Morceau Subrosa actually was advertised more as a side project. It's marked as a single on iTunes for whatever reason. But that feels more like a mainline studio album than this did. Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep it on my iPod if for nothing else than for the fantastic album cover, and I'm certainly not opposed to revisiting it or feel like it doesn't have its place, but I don't feel the strongest urge to go back to it right now. Really hope BT delivers on that Other Side of Fear album. That better be great, and I'm sure it will be, given how much I love this binary universe, If the Stars Are Eternal and Underscore, but we'll see. But yeah, between here and you, it's fine. I'm overall feeling a 6.7 out of 10. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. Shout out to my Patreon supporters. They're awesome people. You want to add yourself to that list or make me a review something, link to my Patreon is in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.